In 1 Samuel 15:22, we read one of the most sobering and profound statements in the Bible. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. These were the words of the prophet Samuel, spoken to King Saul. They weren't just words of correction, they were words of judgment. Saul had disobeyed God's clear command, and though he tried to cover it with a religious excuse, God was not impressed. Why? Because God doesn't want performance, he wants obedience. This story starts when God instructed Saul to completely destroy the Amalekites. God's command was clearly leave nothing alive. But Saul, after winning the battle, spared King Agag and kept the best of the livestock. When confronted, Saul insisted, "I did obey the Lord," claiming he kept the animals for sacrifice. But Samuel saw through the facade. He asked, "Why then do I hear the sound of sheep?" Saul had prioritized what looked religious over what was righteously commanded. Here's the hard truth. We can offer God sacrifices he never asked for and still be disobedient. Obedience is not about partial compliance. It's about full surrender. God doesn't grade us on good intentions. He desires alignment with his will, even when it's uncomfortable. Throughout Scripture, we see that obedience has always been the true mark of love and faith. Jesus said in John 14:15, "If you love me, keep my commandments." Not, "If you love me, sing louder." Not, "Give more." But obey, because obedience is proof of trust. And trust is what God has always wanted from his people. Take Abraham, for example. In Genesis 22, God asks Abraham to sacrifice his beloved son, Isaac. It's perhaps one of the most shocking requests in all of Scripture. And yet, Abraham obeyed. Without hesitation, without delay. He didn't argue. He didn't try to offer a substitute animal first. He simply trusted. And at the very last moment, God provided a ram. That moment wasn't about sacrifice. It was about obedience birthed from faith. Contrast that with Saul, who wanted to appear religious but lacked true surrender. God told him, "Because you have rejected the word of the Lord, he has rejected you as king." That's the cost of disobedience. Missed destiny. Saul lost his throne, not because of military failure but because of spiritual rebellion, masked as worship. The problem is, many of us today make the same mistake. We give God parts of our life, offer him our talents, money, or time, but hold back the one thing he wants, most our obedience. We say yes with our lips, but no with our actions. Jesus even warned about this in Matthew 7:21. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father." Obedience, not religious vocabulary, is what counts. Let's not forget what happened to Jonah. God told him to go to Nineveh. Jonah said no and ran the opposite direction. He found a ship, paid the fare, and set sail toward Tarshish. But even the ocean couldn't carry him away from God's will. A storm came, a fish swallowed him, and eventually, he ended up right where God originally told him to go. The lesson, delayed obedience, is still disobedience. And often, it comes with unnecessary storms. Now look at Jesus, the perfect example of obedience. Philippians 2:28 says, "He humbled himself and became obedient to even death on a cross." Jesus didn't want to suffer. In Gethsemane he prayed, "Father, if it's possible, take this cup from me." But his final words were, "Not my will, but yours be done." That is obedience at its highest form, surrendering your will to God's, even when it hurts. So what does obedience look like today? Sometimes it's quiet, unseen faithfulness. Forgiving when you don't feel like it. Letting go of a relationship God never approved. Saying no to opportunities that violate your integrity. Giving when it stretches you. Saying yes when he says go. It may not be dramatic, but it's holy. And in God's eyes, it's better than 1,000 burnt offerings. Jesus told a parable in Matthew 21:28-31 about two sons. The father asked them to work in the vineyard. One said, "I won't," but later obeyed. The other said, "I will," but didn't follow through. Jesus asked, which one did the will of the Father? The one who actually obeyed. It's not what we promise, it's what we practice. So why is obedience better than sacrifice? Because obedience proves we trust God's heart, while sacrifice can sometimes be used to compensate for God doesn't need our burnt offerings. He wants our surrendered hearts. He wants a people who will listen, respond, and follow him, even when it's hard. As we close, remember this. God isn't impressed by what you give if you re not first giving him your heart. He doesn't need more songs, money, or ministry. If obedience is missing, he desires your trust, your yes, your alignment. That's where the blessing flows. Deuteronomy 28 promises that obedience brings favor, protection, and provision, not because God rewards effort, but because he blesses alignment. So today, ask yourself, what is God asking of me that I've delayed or resisted? What area of my life needs to come under obedience? Because when you say yes, really yes, God begins to move. Not because you sacrificed, but because you obeyed.